duos in the bot lane. Now, saying this, if you've watched this year's Worlds, you would know that the Aphelios Lulu was picked into this as a neutralizer because it doesn't die, it stabilizes in lane, and then it scales a lot later on. Plus, it gives a lot of range and playmaking ability through all of these Aphelios kit that he has to his weapons, right? So, I think what Astralis really need to do is potentially try and get Crispback ahead onto that Lucian. Screw Senkax, particularly in this game. He's playing the Azir. He's gonna scale into the late game. You've got Wukong. You've got the skirmishing ability in the early game. Take it down bot.
I really like that because game 1 it was, wow, Senkax versus Backlund. Awesome mid lane matchup. Game 2, critical mission failure. We're going to Crispback. Game 1 was really difficult. And yeah, coming out of that game, if you're in the Astralis camp, yeah, it's a difficult one to come away from because at the end of the day, Dusty just kind of outplayed you. Early game, team fights, it was very difficult. However, if you do get this Lucian ahead now, if you can get Crispback, the real shining star out of the Astralis constellation from game 1, that Lucian ult at 1.5 items, no one on Dusty wants to tank that. For me, that's something they can play around.
Listen here, Namera. There can only be one Crispback fangirl in here, okay?
all right. Look, I'm going to keep the two of you away from each other. Stay apart. I'm going to keep the boys on track here. As clearly a little bit of passion coming out here, and we're hoping for something a little bit more out of side of Astralis, because Crispback did actually have a very good Kais game, as we were saying. It's, again, not the easiest game to play the Lucian, but there's a lot of squishy people, and if you get far and ahead, you can blow someone up. And the other person I'd like to highlight, as we were kind of noting in that pick and ban, was actually Senkax did get a hold of the Azir, a champion that's been very potent over the last few patches, and something he's historically made a huge name for himself on, and something you noted, Georgia, that was banned completely away from him in the semi-finals. He just wasn't allowed the champion.
Yeah, and I think the champion pool between Backlund and Roscoe in that series is extremely similar, like the Sylases, the Akalis, the Yasuos, the Yones, a lot of melee-heavy assassin playmaking champions that Azir tends to not only neutralize, but become a nuisance towards when the teamfights later on start coming through. Yes, that Akali has playmaking potential and does have kill pressure after she hits level 6 in the mid lane, but that Azir can play the team fights and create problems for that Aphelios when he moves forward, for that Camille. And also, it would be huge to see Senkax do these team fights. When Kerberos joins with a Camille ult, you push him out of his ult, you break it open, you can start playmaking through that.
Yeah, and also there's another point about the Azir too, because he has that scaling option, but he also plays early game. You can see what's happening in this mid lane. We saw this in the last kind of set of waves before this. Azir pushes in most of the mid lane matchups very early on. And when you have a bot lane, as we've seen on screen quite a lot in the first 3 minutes, that are fighting, that are interacting, having a pushing mid lane that allows your junglers a better option towards bot lane can be very, very pivotal. Now, of course, that doesn't matter in this case because Linces has managed to find a gap in those waves where they're being pushed, and it is a dive on bot side. Astralis should be covering this, but they're not in position to.
This is so scary. The Lee Sin is here. Yet to use anything. Exhaust comes down. Flash. First blood. Linces gets it. Now Kiba is the one left alone. But is it going to be sushi for breakfast? Doesn't look like it. Kiba is left alive for now. Tax is here. Still will have his warrior tricks to maybe get in here. But they'll back away for now and just shove in another wave.
This is already a real pain point now for Astralis, because again, if you've watched how this kind of draft plays out on the world stage, on the international stage, you have these bot lanes, but you're meant to have the Azir to help you get down bot lane first. Get that priority, which allows your jungler there. Linces doesn't give a damn, finds a window to go bot side. Taxa is not there to respond, and Astralis lose a kill in the most important lane on the map for them.
And I think the most important thing is that the way Dusty knew that Taxa was not bot lane, because Kerberos shoved in his wave, moved all the way to the Wolves where Taxer was and spotted him. And literally the second they spotted him, Linces pulled the trigger down bot lane for that bot lane dive. And remember what we said at the very beginning, how, you know what, take that pressure down bot lane, get some kills onto Crispback, get that lane skyrocketing ahead. Well, right now, they've put them in the dirt because the Aphelios lane is ahead. That Lucian has lost exhaust, they've lost their combat summoners down bot lane, and guess what? Lee Sin is still in that bot quadrant of the jungle, so if he wants to get a repeat done, he can very well walk through that lane.
Love that spot on the wolf read there, Georgia. That's exactly right, because that is the power of Dusty when they're really on it. Their ability to read the map and empower Linces to start doing stuff like this. Cruel. Flash from Dem Voxney. Bind your clips. Look for that Sonic Wave. Can't quite get the kill. Vital Auto gets it. The Dusk Wave does its due diligence and brings down the Nami. Was not killed in the first dive. Was in the second. Linces now hunting for more.
Yeah, and he's looking at Crispy, but Crispy is going to back off, and it's exactly what we mentioned, right? Lintas was still on the bot side of the map. Kiba and Crispy were trying to shove in the wave, crash it on the tower, but because the bot quadrant of Lintas' jungle was still up, he chose to do his Gromp and rip it down bot lane. They got every summoner out of Crispy and Kiba, and again, that bot lane that was supposed to be your carry potential in the early game, while Aatrox and Azir are scaling towards these later stages of the game, has just been put to the dirt.
And I love what's happening here with this Dusty early game. A team that is so good at team fighting, but has teeth in the early game too. Stend, I keep referring back to this interview because it was so evocative. Stend wanted to be in the LFL, wanted to go towards the LEC. This team has such high expectations, and they are playing out of their minds to get there.
Linsis has had enough of playing bot side, looking for kill on the top line. Ignite comes down from Curb. Looks like get the kill. Flash away from that. Maybe Linsis goes down. It's too deep. But can Carlson get out with more? Healing best he can. And the bot side, it's a double kill somehow for Lulu. Flash to interrupt the hook shot from Taxa. Now Kerberos left out of dry. That Q goes wide, looking for more, but will not get it. Carlson survives bot lane, double killed. And Dusty come out on top somehow in the overall play.
Holy, I'm just so proud of what Carlson has done.
Not like this! The shield comes through. Q about to come up surely. Everything is warded. One final hook shot would do it. Taxus around. And Carlson's still alive.
Okay, Carlson right here needs to put on his carry pants because that was absolutely beautiful in the top lane. As we have another look at what happened in the bot lane, Crispberg walks in. Dusty's Fnatic bush right there was in full force, and this is going to be a double kill for them. But again, I just want to point out how happy I am to see that development on Carlson, and honestly, he would have very easily turned this into 2 deaths had his ultimate not run out literally a millisecond before he got that kill onto Lee Sin. That is a reset, that is hunting the Camille down, that is getting a double kill while you're getting ganked, and this Aatrox can actually be your win condition because your bot lane is dead, is gone. You might as well forget it. You're waiting for that Gale Force. That's as useful as his solution is going to be for now. By getting that Aatrox ahead, using him for the neutral objective fight, could be your win con.
And that's so fun to see from Carlson taking the mechanical plays, because this was in game 1, it was Dusty winning out on the micro. I mean, I was completely nerding out about how the Yasuo had played those fights, how Linsis was playing those fights. Really exceptional stuff. Carlson in game 2, again, stepping up. It was Crispberg in game 1, but Carlson getting something to really shout about, to get himself hyped up in this game 2. Herald's now spawned. It's 8 minutes on the clock. We don't have either bot lane roaming towards it. It is just going to be top sides contesting it. It looks like Astralis are going to have first crack.
Yeah, and importantly, Taxa has got level 6. Linsis does not. Will get it off the mid lane wave, though. Now they can look to contest in the mid lane. Senkux has to
Big
flash.
mistake. So what happens with Azir is if you only have one soldier down and you tap E, it doesn't matter where that soldier is, you're going to dash towards it. It doesn't matter where your cursor placement is, and I think Senkux panics and presses E and has to flash out because he sees Kerberos heading towards him.
It looked like a client bug, but it wasn't. Thank you for the explanation right here, Namera. But all in all, Astralis get what they came for. They get that Rift Herald, they can use it for top lane for even more pressure. You can try to open that mid lane, and of course, bot lane is bleeding for Astralis. It's going to be a constant wound, and Dusty are constantly picking at it. That is 3 turret platings going to the side of Dusty, and that has pretty much nullified the time and effort that you've put to take that Rift Herald for the side of Astralis.
Taxa does look to shield that lane in case a dive comes through, has got that held, and of course, made that phenomenal play topside to block the hook shot by being invisible. Genius stuff, but he's still around here, so is Linsis, and that means potential 3v3 brewing. Remember, of course, the ultimate from Crispberg is down. Polymorph out of that just a moment or two ago. His topside Kerberos definitely on the losing end of those trades right now towards that Aatrox. And maybe, just maybe, despite Dusty being up a hefty amount of gold, it feels like there are a couple more avenues for Astralis to play through this game, at least towards the top side of the map. Bot
And
side,
that's
as
much
you kind of
needed.
said, definitely bleeding.
That is much needed, because imagine loading into game 2 after game 1 saying, all right, okay, Crispberg, you know, you had a great first game. Really got to see you step up in this game. You know, we're going to play around you. And he gets hammered. You know, how has that got to feel? Because, you know, it's Hiprain on the desk and saying one of the real big things about Dusty is they can play through any lane. Astralis need to showcase that they can also do that this game. We know that they have carries across the board. All of these laners do so much for them. And it is now Carlson which has the burden of trying to be the carry on this Aatrox. We've seen it at Worlds, we've seen it across the globe. This champion can do it, but Dusty are not going to make it easy.
You know what? That brought me back flashbacks from the spring split when we were talking to Chris Beck. He was like, you know what? I'm really used to getting dived at this point. Like literally every single time Alice was playing, you'd see 4 or 5 members like diving Chris Beck down the bot lane. So I think this man is used to being absolutely hammered in the bot lane and
just type in just all chat, just rent free.
It's like, I'm used to these losers.
Ugh. Says the mid laner who just made diamond. You've been through the elo struggle on that front. 4th plate goes down bot side. Congrats, by the way, George. I've not said that one yet. So the climate just about in time. You met the deadline. Proud of you for that. As we've got mid lane play coming through. Linsis looking to find something more. Has not kind of found anything really over the last few minutes compared to the action-packed early few ganks. Maybe top side, though, is where Astralis is going to look to go in, as Taxa is here with the Herald and Infantry. Kerberos needs to be a bit afraid about walking, just trying to be an XP range right now.
I think this is really important here, because what you're trying to do here is just deny Kerberos the ability to get involved in anything. He's starting to lose this 1v1. Maybe it's a mistake ending this laning phase in topside this early with the Herald. You have an elongated lane there. But if you can use this to say, all right, Carlson, reach one item, he can impact the game, that can be so incredibly important. He's not going to be here bot side, though, to defend this dive.
Carlson just got TP up now in time to maybe come through. Wild Growth keeps Linsis alive. Keeper just about around. It's going to be a 2-for-1 right now. Carlson looking for more. Lands the Infernal Chains. Forced to flash out of Dan Voxnay. Stend will now need to flash one out as Senkux came flying in. Still the 2-for-1 in favor of Dusty as Backlund will ward off Taxa.
Very good stuff right there. The instant TP down bot lane to try and defend his bot lane as Chris Beck ends up going down yet again. But Carlson is right in time to not only fend off the dive, but to actually shove in the lane. And I will 100% agree with Namera right here. If Carlson actually has big impact on the map at this point, that he's allowed to roam, that he has pushed in the top lane tier 1, then that's great and dandy. But I usually have a little bit of a trouble, especially in the areas that Rift Trial goes towards the top side of the map. Because that lane kind of gets forgotten. The enemy top lane that has been pretty much starving off of any resources gets to perma farm and they get back into the game. So we'll keep an eye on the Kerberos.
Taxa. Oh my god, doesn't quite make it. One flash and it's baited. Backlund goes down.
Baited, outsmarted, put into the dirt. I mean, Backlund, he goes in, and, you know, you can't fault him for saying that. You see the low health enemy jungler, like, yeah, I have execute damage, I can take that down. Dusty lose a kill. Now, they do have a freeze in this top lane, and it is just a continuation of what we saw from that Herald and what George was talking about here too. Like, Kerberos is very happy to just say, I have denied you 2 waves at this point. This will slow push back in and it'll get me a reset, but I am more than happy because this Camille is getting resources. As long as Astralis aren't leveraging this Aatrox on the map, they are chilling with this top lane matchup compared to how it was before that Herald was put down.
Game is only 500 gold apart. A lot of that, honestly, will be off that top lane. And, of course, getting a kill there definitely helps things out as well. A much closer game. Problem is, those win cons we were talking about, you wanted that Lucian to be rolling with how this team comp kind of functions. Not in the best spot, of course. At least the Azir, at least this Aatrox are pretty damn scary. He did burn that TP to get down to the bot lane. It has allowed Kerberos to catch back up a fair amount. He was down 30 CS. Not really the case anymore because of how many waves he got to pick up in that top side. And now Dragon's alive. Again, neither team has decided to go for it as yet. And does mean if we are going to get to what, it'll be a very late soul.
So what we're seeing now is something that we saw in semi-finals from Dusty against Riddle, and then also what we saw in Game 1 as well here, and we've seen it throughout the entirety of the Aurora Open. Okay, you have survived the early game enough to compete. You're actually even. This is better than most teams have done against Dusty. Now you have to out-team fight them. Now you do have a composition which can do that. That's something that Jamada was saying on the desk. And also what Astralis have is a lot of vision to start giving themselves angles to play around. The Herald that's just spawning, the Dragon that's just spawning. They have themselves a good platform, but we need to see a team, if they are going to beat Dusty, finally beat them in the 5v5s where no one else can prevail.
Yeah, and my only issue right here is that everybody has the mythic item except that Akali. I think Backlund going down in the mid lane skirmish that they had really set him behind, because should have already had that rocket belt, being able to engage fights, being able to be an absolute nuisance in the side lane, even if he has to play against the Aatrox. But all in all, again, the fact that you put down the Herald, that you have to navigate a map versus Dusty, who are absolutely insane. Yeah,
Nice
against
attempt.
that's what absolutely insane at macro means that you lost your bot lane tier 1 for absolutely free, and Kerberos has more than caught up. Dusty are starting this dragon as well, so you've got a Herald. What are you going to do with it? Because the typical play is you drop it down mid lane, Dusty has to reply to it, you lose the dragon, but right here, Astralis are in no way, shape or form to actually enter their bot quadrant of the jungle to get to the dragon because they're bot lane tier 1 health.
All right, Dragon falls in trade for that Herald, you said. Now to see whether Astralis can find something more out of it. Getting a hold of this mid lane in particular would be really nice for making sure they can track Lincess, who has been a bit of a menace this game. Was a bit of a menace last game as well, as we saw. That Talir was damn disgusting, and that's exactly what they're going to do. Herald summon nice and early. Lincess instead will try and ward it off, as I believe Denvoxner will be just coming onto the top of the screen right now to try and shield this one off. Lincess hops on in and gets a hold of that eye, so the tower doesn't quite fall.
Yeah, and that's actually important. That is very important because normally when you're playing between these two bot lanes, it's the Lucian that gets to push in that mid lane. Taking a chunk out of it means that you can never leave that mid lane now.
Yeah, and I think it feels bad in general when you take in the second Rift Herald. That second Rift Herald should open a tower, should take down a structure on the map. And the fact that now this is problematic, right? Because you can stick that Astralis in the mid lane the entire time, and he will keep very much shoving in that wave. You'll have your Lulu around, which means you're undivable. Lee Sin will be within reach as well. Plus, you have two champions with teleport. You can even threaten to kill like Denvoxner tried right there with the Moonlight Vigil. So I think the fact that they didn't necessarily try to pressure it with a wave, try to catch Dusty off guard, is a big no-no right there, because again, the time investment and the resources you put to take that Rift Herald should reward you with something, and so far it's been zero.
So keep your eyes on this bot side river, as you can see Taxa was just wandering up there to see whether a fight would kick off. Lensis will take that opportunity to steal away those raptors, and has been a couple little attempts there, right? We saw in the mid lane, just checking in with the ultimate, checking to see whether there was an angle towards the top lane, because there isn't any objectives really on the map right now. No Herald, no Dragon for a few minutes, and does mean we have got a moment or two before something really kicks off, and Astralis would love to get hold of that mid lane turret. Maybe that's what they're angling for right now, as they bring multiple members mid.
Yeah, and this is kind of like the second payoff of the Herald, right? Because you do get a chunk out of it, and even though your Lucian is behind, you still got some control of that mid lane, especially after that FLS ult misses. So Dusty not going to be able to retain that. However, they're more than happy playing out through these side lanes. I think the consolation which Dusty is saying is that, okay, we lose the mid lane tower, sure, but we have our side lanes picking up farm in these 3 lanes. Astralis are only playing 1 or 2 lanes right now, so we're gaining more in our passive income in terms of picking up CS. Kerberos is back in the game. He's actually got himself to like a reasonable CS amount now, as opposed to the crushing CS deficit they were in before this point. And Backlund has kill threat in the side lanes too. I mean, Dusty are very happy about how they're playing the larger map right now, and I think this has been testament to how good Dusty's mid game has been compared to the rest of the NLC, particularly in this tournament.
Well, we are well and truly into said mid-game at this point. Couple minutes until something like a Baron spawns. It is 2 minutes, however, until Dragon number 2, what looks to be a Mountain Dragon. Of course, I'm saying that with a little bit of nerves, because last game, the spectator bug for us was that the Hex Dragon was in fact a Mountain Dragon. So I'm saying it's a Mountain Dragon, hoping that's actually what it is, and it's not a Hex Dragon. I'm being horribly baited.
It's actually a chameleon dragon, Sam. It's a new kind of... Yeah, no, don't pay attention to that. It's a chameleon. It will be whatever color it wants.
Oh, I maybe took the wrong moment to talk about dragons. There's a fight going on both sides. Taxes goes in for the second half of that Cyclone. Will now have to back away. Senkux will not land the ultimate as Denvoxner begins to auto his way through the Emperor of Shurima, who's locked into the back end as Backlund brings down Taxa. The mid-jungle of Astralis is down for the count. Dusty just fight better. Sten's now in trouble. Flashes on out of the Infernal Chains. Carlson trying to do his best to ward off any more Dusty aggression. Lincess cleaning up these Krogs over the wall with the safeguard goes Lincess. And that will be the end of it. But my god, Dusty, get the turret, get 2 kills, and get on out.
Yeah, pretty good at skirmishing, right? It seems like every single time for Dusty, one member is the bait. You're like, what are they doing? They're overextending, they're walking into fog of war, they're face checking or whatever. The entitled Dusty is there to back them up. And when it comes to that split pushing, you have to think, yes, okay, you have an Azir from the set of Astralis, he can outpush the Akali. You have the Aatrox into the Camille, perfect, you get the matchup, all good. But the thing is right here, an Akali is more than happy to be late in a fight because her job is to flank. Senkax needs to be there there onto the, as he can't be TPing in. As we're watching this fight again, I think Taxer overextends right here because Backland is on a flank. They know that Akali is on a flank, and Taxer reaches way too far deep. They don't see then Voxen on the side. He flashes through the Azir ult, and suddenly you've got two isolated fights, one towards the top where they actually exterminate Senkax, and then Taxer has used his entire kit to try and zone away two members of Dusty who got out pretty healthily. And then by the time Carlson was there, the dance was over and he went back to sit on his chair. But all in all, again, Dusty, so good at skirmishing and getting back into the same play, whilst Astralis little bit sloppy with splitting up too much.
Yeah, and I think, you know, both of these teams have a lot of mobility. Look at these top sides, actually very mobile top sides. And I think Astralis, when they're looking for the big engages, they're using too much of that mobility to go forward. Dusty play it more decisively, and they just use it on the counter engage. They're using it like this. Astralis use a lot to try and find the engage. Dusty save it for the cleanup. That's how they've been winning the last couple of fights.
All the while, though, because of that reset and the summoners burned, Astralis did get control of that bot side river, did get in, steal away that Ocean Drake, and got out free despite Dusty looking to see whether it was a flank angle. What it has meant, though, is that top side river is very dark indeed. Baron has been started. Kerberos on a flank, so is Backland and Astralis have to face check. They have to find a way in. Taxa is the one to do it. On this Wukong, looking to find something. Backland yet to move.
Oh, Kerberos and Backland, they're on the flank, they're both on the flank.
Looking for it, Taxa goes in, there's Cyclone 1. Then Vox, they're down pretty low, trying to heal up. He's found the first already, he's down. Senka keeps away, but Backland gets in. It's 2 down already, and Dusty find 3. Carlson must clean up, he's been polymorphed, trying to find those Darkin blades, but there's just so much damage. Backland flashing away. Carlson, this monster, this world ender, is about to be broken. It's looking like a God of War game because Ragnarok is coming to the side of Dusty right now. There ain't no Kratos, but this will do just fine!
He wins himself the bullet hell challenge, got to thread the needle on the timing, cancels out the Akali, and Carlson, the person, the player, the person with all the burden on Astralis to try and find a carry angle for his team, does walk away with a consolation prize. Baron is alive. Carlson walks away with a couple of kills, and it is not all disastrous for Astralis somehow.
Okay, so they say when it's more than one person flanking, it's not really a flank, because what that does is, as you can see at the top of the map, it isolates the Voxer. He goes really low, he dies almost instantly, and Lintas falls low as well. So the fact that there were 3 and 2, Astralis picked the side they wanted to play towards, and they run towards the Voxne. Now, the fact that Carlson is so strong and he can play through the 1v3, this is only a testament to the whole early that went on for Astralis and all the gold that went towards Carlson. The fact that the Rift Herald went down as well, and the fact that Backland took an E straight back to Q3 from that Aatrox. But enough of that, we have more.
Right, I made the God of War reference last time. I was proven wrong. Carlson did me in on that one, certainly did. Backland, can they do it again here? Proto belt forward, over the wall he goes. Continue a hunt. This Akali so damn strong. Chrisberg throws down the exhaust. Back on out goes Backland, but the summon has been popped. Carlson, the world ender. That Aatrox so deadly. Looking for a flank. Ultimate goes wide. Senkuk's just not finding the angles very often this game. Carlson forced away, and Taxa and the rest of Astralis do manage to get back into the jungle, but for how long? Health bar's low, but no one dies.
And again, it is just these small margins of error. You can see that the fights are becoming very, very split, very scrappy. It's not a traditional front to back, and Dusty keeping up the tempo of the game. Astralis are still in it. They're still swimming with the punches. They can still win these fights.
There's still a kick, there's still a Moonlight Vigil! Taxa's caught! He doesn't quite die. It's the clone that's the one that's taken low. Looking for more. Kerberos hops forward. Carlson is the one that's taken low. Now Den Voxney can begin to free fire. Everyone's at 20 to 10%, but no one dies again. And back they go, round 3, the bait continues. Come on, Astralis, you know you want to fight. The Dusty are throwing out the clarion call, this round 3 of the boxing ring.
And again, you can see the gold is even enough that Astralis can just about fight. They can still bite this off.
3,000 HP, is this the leash?
Wait, they don't have smite though, they don't have smite. Taxer is not alive, so they have to fight through it.
Voxney, my god, so low, so scary. Chrisberg can't quite secure the kill onto Backland, and I think just about this fight is over.
Holy. Okay, so the fact that Linces does not find the perfect angle onto at least the squishy members in the backline saves Astralis right there, because they lose Taxa, but the two important members that have teleport to go back to base, refill their HP bars, and TP back into the play are Senkax and Carlsen, and they do just that to try and stop Dusty from taking down that pink purple worm. Is that a thing? Big purple worm. There you go.
Well, I'm there with you.
Carlsen, 2 levels up, by the way, on Kerberos. He's fighting that 1-to-1.
Right now, into the Hextech ultimate, the nice down as well. Here comes the rest of Dusty. That's why they were thinking about this. Carlsen, though, has been left alone for long enough. Not enough heal. Wild Growth comes through. A flash from Sten gets him in. Carlsen gets the knockup. Kerberos goes forward with the Hextech with the hook shot. Trying to get a kill. Senkox gets Linces. They get Carlsen in trade. It's a 1-for-1 right now.
And again, against any other team in this tournament, in NLC, this probably would have been good enough for Dusty to run away with these fights. But they are being held to account in the early game. They're not approaching this with a huge lead. And though Dusty are playing out these fights very well, it is even enough that it can be contested.
Moonlight Vigil. Perfect execution, some deadly ultimates available for Dusty. Astralis have to be scared, have to be careful. 4,000 HP, Moonlight Vigil lands. That's the chakrams in for Demvoxley, who can begin to open up. Gale Force forwards, Kerberos holds the hook shot, and the Baron resets, and now they're onto it. Linces respawn.
Oh my god, please.
It's not over.
This is like, no, sir, I don't want the Baron. You can have it. Oh, please, sir, I can't have your Baron. You can have your Baron back. I can see both teams with like a top hat and a monocle and a mustache, like literally throwing Baron to each other. But at the end of the day, it's gonna be, of course, it's gonna be Dusty that take this one out. Astralis, yes, they're trying to do the Baron, but they're all extremely squishy, which means that when the Lucian doesn't have a lot of mana because he needs to preserve some, if the fight breaks out, he needs to also burst down the Baron. It just does not end up working for Astralis, and Dusty walking with the healthier HP bars and mana bars and take it out. So Astralis, really good try right there. 4,000 gold deficit is on the map right here for Astralis, and Dusty are looking pretty good. That top lane that we're talking about, yes, a lot of CS deficit, but Kerberos has found himself back into the game. He took that bot lane tower. He's taking that top lane tower. He's been an absolute teamfight / side lane nuisance. And how are Astralis gonna deal with that?
Well, and even the XP leaders started to disappear, right? Even levels on those top laners. As much as in that Baron dance, the Baron...
Wait, he was 2 levels behind. A second ago.
Even then, Astralis had themselves a fighting opportunity, but Dusty are so damn clean in the fights, in the macro, of playing out these tense games, even when they've rarely had them in this tournament. And right now, they're starting to rack up that gold lead, which they didn't have up until this point. 5,000 gold. If they were just about being contested slightly in the lead by Astralis, now they can really start to flex those muscles. Kerberos is one of those players that can really start doing that. But across the board, they're starting to get some big item breakpoints. 3 items on the AD carry, importantly.
Kerberos in a 1v2. I'm not sure how much he wants. Remember, no flash. He went for the ignite option, and he's dead to rights. The shutdown goes the way of Taxa. All the while, mid lane turret falls, but an important pickup there as Kerberos goes a little too deep.
And this is going to be the second dragon going over to Dusty as well. I mean, it always sucks, honestly, given especially a shutdown over when the game is that close. Because yes, it is 3,500 gold in lead for Dusty. But Astralis have a fantastic team fighting composition right here with disengage, engage, peeling, zoning, everything you want. They have it in their composition, so it's much easier for them to front to back team fight if they want to. 3,500 gold lead goes to the side of Dusty, but they have the more skill check champions, if you will. Backland doesn't play the fight to perfection. If Linces doesn't either, the composition doesn't work, and it relies on them using their ultimates and the utility on their champions to perfection for this 3,500 gold to show up on the map, right? Which they have been so far. But Astralis are still in a pretty good position to bring this back. Item breakpoints are being met. That Azir almost on that Zonias does have the stopwatch for the next fight to come. And Astralis are looking to regain a little bit of that vision control, at least in the top.
Yes, that's exactly what they're doing. And Carlsen, Taxa, Senkox, all very much in this game. Problem is, it really has been the bot lane that's been kept out of the game. This Lucian, this Nami, doesn't really feel like they've had a lot of impact. 0-4-5 on this Lucian. Down nearly 60 CS over it at this point. It's been a tough game for the Lucian, trying to find an angle in, and you're kind of wondering whether that is going to be the break point as this game continues to go on.
And considering this was a draft, to call back to it, that we expected Astralis to play towards this bot lane. The bot lane being so incredibly important towards the composition, getting the Lucian ahead so they can have a fighting mid-game. The fact that Dusty recognized that, shut it down, has made the game so difficult, but Astralis still trying to fight back.
Carlson taken low, but not down. Then Vox, they knocked up, trying to heal back up with the Severum. Throws down the onslaught, flashing forward. His Senkux does not get the kill. Lulu gets that one, but it's a 1-for-1 right now. Lince's killed to the backside, taken out. 2 for the Lucian. The person who's supposed to be down one out of it. He's going to get himself not quite the triple, as Chrisberg gets that one. Backlund trying to execute, gets the Nami, and now must try and fight his way on out. Kerberos will hook shot away, and that is a 3-for-2 in favor of Astralis.
Senkax, man, he's the hero no one expected, but Astralis needed, and he shows up. Because if that shuffle doesn't deliver a 1% 8-speed champion back to Carlson, Carlson never gets that reset onto his ult. Carlson never gets to run down that fight. So again, it shows you that in a front to back, and even right there, when Carlson Taxa actually got engaged on that bot lane, the fact that they can play the front to back, the fact that that shuffle saved the fight for Senkax, it shows signs of Astralis in the teamfights to come.
Yeah, and I think what we're starting to see now is something that Aphelios can sometimes struggle with, where actually something like a Varus can succeed. If you're getting on top of this kind of carry, which is low mobility, you can struggle sometimes, even with a Lulu there to help you out. Just being in a mobile carry, heck, it wouldn't have mattered if it was a Varus in this fight, but either way, the amount of team fight damage, once you've got to this amount of gold in the late game with these team fighting solo lanes, makes it very hard for Den Voxney to impact these very broken, high mobility fights, and that's what gives Astralis just the window, the opportunity to get that reset, to get that 80 carry off the table.
Also, credit where credit is due, but criticism where also criticism is due. What the Camille is there is to keep these carries away from your carry, and I think that Voxney was sitting literally on the wall of that Camille ult, which meant that Carlson and Taxa constantly had access to him. Well, one or the other, I don't remember who got ulted from Kerberos, but they both had access on Den Voxney because he was literally sitting right on the wall of that Camille ult. So a little bit of mispositioning right there from Den Voxney, ended up taking his HP bar way too much.
I think part of it as well, just the weapons he had. He was on Severum Crescendo, so like he had the short-range weaponry. Wasn't really the room to play at range with a Calibrum in particular. So not the easiest to play. Gets punished for it. Great shuffle afterwards as well. And this game feels like maybe Astralis have a way back into it, a way to win this. Now an Infinity Edge on the Lucian, we were saying, felt like was struggling in the game. Now he can definitely throw down some damage of his own. Lincus back towards his support, and Baron has spawned. Last time we had 5 attempts before it went down. See whether we can match that again here.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes we're sat there in Champion Select and we're talking through, you know, when the desk is leading us through that Champion Select, and we can be a bit snarky when we're off air, we're specialists at that. We're talking about, you know, Astralis, if they get to one item, if they get to late game, actually, they've got some stuff to really work around, to which Georgia says, let's see if they make it there first. And that has been the story of this game. And they have kind of made it there now-ish. They're a little bit far behind, but they are just on the cusp of reaching that point where the Azir, the Aatrox, even the Wukong, we've forgotten about this champion, can be so dangerous in these late game team fights. If we were asking, let's see them get there first. They're almost there. Dusty, they haven't closed this game out yet.
I clear my throat because coming into this potentially pivotal fight, Backlund just picked up a Medjai's, one of your favorites. The snowball's in. Baron's down. The vision was just not there. Taxa goes in, gets the Cyclone. Into the Backlund goes Backlund. Goes golden afterwards. Taxa pretty low. Cyclone number 2 now popped. He's trying to escape. We'll look for a Warrior Trickster into the E. Now what can they make happen? In goes Backlund. Stopwatch. Use. Moonlight Vigil comes down. Looking to get to the backline. Senkax tries to divide them all from their lives. It's a 2-for-1 in favor of Dusty right now. Senkax could not make it work. The Hextech Ultimator comes down. Kerberos has a stopwatch to boot. Carlson cannot heal his way through until just now, but it's already too little, too late. Chrisberg towards that blast cone is rooted and burned to a crisp with a dusk wave. Put down into a rabbit and roasted over the fire. Carlson falls 5-for-2.
And this is why we talk about Dusty's team fighting. This time, who's the strongest member in the team from Astralis? Carlson. Who kept him away from joining this fight? Kerberos. Because if Carlson had been there, the fight would have looked so much different. Last time, it was Senkax. Who made sure he wasn't there? Backlund. Dusty are so good at capitalizing and keeping the threats out of the fights and then neutralizing the rest of it. It's off to this team because their coordination during times where everything relies on that 0.5 second between you calling something and pressing your button and them doing it that flawlessly.
And it is a joy to see a team that is willing to take these kind of plays.
Look
It
at
hasn't worked
Kebos!
out for them every time. Just look at it.
And this is, there was a Baron fight earlier when we talked about, if you flank with more than one person, it's not actually a flank. But I think Dusty are just so good at putting multiple people into threatening positions. And yes, it does sometimes put someone like a Den Voxney on this fellows a little bit out of position. But when it works and when they put the enemy carries onto the back foot, so they can't capitalize on Dusty being so split, you can see how quickly the damage comes down. Now, this was still a bit of a dangerous fight. There was every chance that you could start dancing away with that Lucian. The Aatrox gets resets, but with these couple of team fights in a row, Dusty looking to close it out.
Lincers finds the flash kick onto Sencooks, and look who's in the backline. It's Backlund who punctures a lung and brings down the Emperor. He gets two. Chrisberg is down already, so is Kiba. Taxa now caught in the cage and brought right down to earth. Carlson must do it all and just can't make it happen. A triple kill to Backlund, a game 2 win for Dusty, and they do it by just having better damn hands. 36 minutes on the clock, and they are 2-0 in the series.
You know what? This reminds me a lot of how T1